Hello, this is my project, History of Special Education in the United States Timeline Overview. So, starting with 1817, the American Asylum for Education and Instruction of the Deaf and Dumb was founded. It was founded by Thomas Hopkins Gallagher when he went to Europe to study methods of deaf education. He then came back with Laurent Clerc, and they founded the Asylum for Education and Instruction of the Deaf and Dumb. This is important because it was a huge step to start educating students with special needs or disabilities before there weren't any schools that were formed. Then go to 1864, the National College for the Deaf and Dumb. This was the only school in the U.S. to offer a college degree for deaf people. It was in Washington, D.C., and Congress created this college. It is now called Gallaudet University, named after Thomas Hopkins Gallaudet, who founded the American Asylum for the Education and Instruction of the Deaf and Dumb. Today, we see when we go to school that students with exceptionalities are in our classes. So it's interesting to see that back in the day that there was a college just dedicated to these students, and now they're just incorporated in our classes. In 1922, the International Council for the Education of Exceptional Children was founded by Elizabeth E. Farrell. This started with 12 members who were administrators and supervisors who were attending a summer session for teaching. The goal of this council is to help students with disabilities to make sure they have equal opportunities, and the council is now known as the Council for Exceptional Children. In 1950, the National Association for Retarded Citizens was founded. It is now called the ARC. This group was a parent-organized group. It was founded by parents and concerned community members who wanted to make sure that people with disabilities were being treated correctly. This is still an organization today, the ARC, and it helps serve people with disabilities and their families. 1954, Brown versus the Board of Education. This is important because schools were ordered by the United States Supreme Court to desegregate schools by race. So that made sure that it was not separate, that blacks and whites could still go to school together. This is also important because now it includes children with special needs, culturally and linguistically diverse students. So now everyone can go to school together and not be in different school settings. 1963, the Association for Children with Learning Disabilities was founded. This is also an organization made up of parents and then also adults with learning disabilities. Today, the organization is known as LDA, and this organization as well strives to serve people with special needs, make sure they're getting equal treatment and opportunities. 1965, the Elementary and Secondary Education Act was signed by President Lyndon B. Johnson, who was on during his Poor of Poverty push. So this was a huge step in education because it provided funding for schools in lower income areas. Most schools in lower income areas do not get as much funding because property value is low, property taxes aren't as much. So this gave those schools a little bit more money to hopefully help educate students who go to poorer schools and are in poorer families. 1975, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA, was started. This law was also enacted by Congress. It makes sure that students who with special needs receive equal treatment. There are 6 principles, two ideas that help set expectations and standards. Those are non-zero reject, appropriate education, non-discriminatory evaluation, least respected environment, procedural due process, and parent and student participation. These all need to come together in an idea to make sure the student gets educated properly, that the parents are in the loop, that everyone knows what's going on. And this idea also includes toddlers all the way up to age 21, to make sure that everyone is educated and getting an equal chance to receive a free public education. 1982, the Board of Education for Hedrick Hudson Central School District versus Raleigh court case. This was the first special education case to get up to the Supreme Court. So Raleigh was a little girl in kindergarten and she was deaf. When they did her initial in-processing, they gave her a sign language translator and an interpreter, and a couple months in, the school decided that she did not need an interpreter, and her grades drastically changed because of it. She was not learning. She was having a very hard time. When she got to first grade, she received hearing aids, but still did not have an interpreter, and her parents decided to sue the school district because they felt like she was not being treated fairly and not given the resources to succeed in school. The court did say that she was denied free appropriate public education, so they won the court case, and this now added to idea to make sure that students are getting the correct education and are getting the resources needed to help them excel in school. 1988, Technology-Related Assistance to Individuals with Disabilities Act. This is also known as the TECH Act. It has to do with technology and funding to states so they can run tests or provide resources to get the best technology assistance for students who need it in special needs programs. This is important because as we see technology growing, we want to make sure that our students do have the best access to the technology that can help them do well in school. So more money means more technology, which hopefully means better outcomes in school. 1990, the Americans with Disability Act, or the ADA. This was an anti-discrimination law that protects disabled individuals. It says that a person cannot be discriminated against at school, but also in the work environment if they have a disability. They are still allowed to use public transportation, but really it's just making sure that after school, after they graduate, they can have equal chances to receive employment and still be able to take care of themselves as any individual would, that they are not treated unequally because of their disability. 2001, No Child Left Behind Act was signed by President Bush. This just makes sure that schools are being held accountable for how their students perform on standardized testing. It's really to close the gap to make sure that students are all doing well. 2004, IDEA was reauthorized. President Bush signed the Individuals with Disabilities Education Improvement Act, which is IDEIA, but it is still IDEA. It was just a reauthorization of it. This is to help children learn by still focusing on their test results, holding schools accountable for their results, and making sure that just the teachers were responsible for how the children do in these classes. 2009, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act was signed by President Obama, which gave more funding to schools. He wanted to make education better to create more jobs. Today we see the unemployment rate is low and continues to get less, but with more money into school, that builds jobs, more jobs for teachers, and also helps educate more kids to push out into the workforce today. And then 2015, Every Student Succeeds Act, ESSA. This is another act signed by President Obama. It was to reauthorize the Elementary Secondary Education Act to make some additions and change some standards to this act. And that's all.